All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Beyond JMS, an ongoing webinar series developed by the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State University that seeks to provide opportunities for knowledge, conversations, and skills for alumni, students, and professionals in San Diego and around the world. Given our global reach, I can't begin today's conversation without acknowledging this morning's wide-ranging attack on Ukraine. These are dark times, and I hope that the world can find a good solution to this heartbreaking situation. Now, it's hard to transition smoothly from this, but let's take us back to our webinar. Today, Alejandro Formanchuk, a seasoned internal communication professional from Argentina, has joined us to share his insights on how to improve internal communication within the workplace. Alejandro is the director of Formanchuk Comunicación Cocreada, a leading internal communication agency in Argentina that has developed over 1,000 projects for more than 300 organizations in 21 countries. Alejandro is also the president of the Argentinian Internal Communication Association and the Ibero-American Internal Communication Federation Director. Alejandro, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some ideas about internal communication to all the community. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, Alejandro, we're thrilled to have you. And personally, I'm really happy about this opportunity for two reasons. One, it's always educational to chat with you about internal communication, a topic that's near and dear to both of our hearts. And two, it'll be fun to do this in English. Alejandro and I always speak in Spanish together, so changing the dynamic and having a conversation in English will be fun. So one of the great things about internal communication with organizations that contributes in making this area of practice so exciting is that it is constantly evolving and changing to meet the increased demands of transformation processes and bring everyone together along on this path of change. Obviously, the demands that internal communicators and internal communication within organizations must meet are numerous. And we could spend hours talking about all of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. But as we only have an hour and 15 minutes, what Alejandro and I have decided to do today is to chat about 8 areas of focus that we believe organizations need to prioritize if they wish to take their internal communication to a higher level. Once we've chatted about these 8 areas, we'll have a 10 to 15-minute Q&A session where you can ask Alejandro anything you want about internal communication and communication in general. So please, feel free to jot down your questions or comments in the chat as we progress through the conversation, and we'll make sure that Alejandro answers as many of them as time permits. So let's get started with our first area of focus, which is that CEOs should prioritize communication and take a leading role in its practice. Numerous studies I have looked at, in addition to informal conversations I've had with internal communicators, highlight that the pandemic has accelerated the strategic positioning of internal communication. Many communicators argue that the silver lining of COVID-19 was that the role of communications jumped high in the eyes of leadership because communicators gained a lot more visibility as they were given the opportunity to work more closely with leaders and show them the value of communication. This higher visibility and influence that internal communicators have within an organization has increased their ability to help leaders align and communicate consistently different policies and points of view, and to be more involved in communication. Now, an important hurdle communicators often face in convincing CEOs to become is just convincing CEOs to become more visible, right? Some CEOs seem to be born for the spotlight, while others aren't comfortable at all with video interviews or just public communication in general. This is a problem because CEOs need to be increasingly present in the just in order to communicate the goals, the reasons, and the circumstances of necessary change in a transparent way. Alejandro, you've worked with a range of CEOs and organizational leaders. What steps do you take to convince them to take a leading role in communicating with employees?
Well, that's a great question. The first step I take is to show the CEOs and the leader that it's impossible to lead well by communication poorly. Because communication and leadership are two sides of the same coin. And an exercise that I like to do to help the leaders understand the importance of communication in their work is to ask them to write down what types of tasks they carry out during the day. And in doing so, they realize that most of these actions are communication actions. For example, they have to explain a new idea, they have to hear the team, they have to motivate the people, they have to provide feedback, they have to receive feedback, they have to negotiate, they have to clarify, adapt, they have to understand other ideas. Where I'm looking with this exercise is that the CEOs understand that improving their communication skills improves them as CEOs or as leaders. That the communication is the essence of their work. I think that the second step is not also to show this, but to train them on the abilities of communication, provide them the tools to improve their communication skills, their personal brand, their reputation, their credibility. I like to explain to CEO that communication is not something that is learned once and for all. Communication is something we have to train every day. And I also encourage them to have the mentality of the elite athlete. For example, what day Rafael Nadal or Leo Messi or Serena Williams or someone from Chile, what's your favorite
Alexis Sanchez.
Soccer? Alexis Sanchez. What day Alexis Sanchez stop training? Never. Every day they train. So leaders can be very good communication, but to continue to be so, they have to continue training. For example, with our agency trains in how to carry out difficult conversations, how to give and receive feedback, how to communicate in digital environments, how to enhance our personal brand, how to be more influential and persuasive, how to manage meetings, how to develop the storytelling or the story doing. In short, the CEO needs to understand the importance of communication for their own work. Second, they have to train, and the most importantly, they have to practice.
Really great. So we've been focusing kind of on the role of the CEO here, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, managers at all levels of an organization need to be effective communicators. Unfortunately, this isn't always the case. I was just reading a study yesterday that suggested that nearly 9 in 10 leaders have experienced the adverse impact of poor communication at work. So, what are the best steps organizations can take to ensure that supervisors and managers are communicating effectively with their teams?
Great. Well, several years ago, I developed the co-created communication model. And one of the pillars is that it's impossible to develop good internal communication only with the work and effort of the internal communication area. Internal communication necessarily has to be co-created by all the people in an organization, especially by the leaders. As you say, the leader has an important place in the development of the communication and in the culture and in the sense of belonging. And I think that many times leaders may believe there is enough to create a campaign or, for example, to buy a new technology to improve the communication. That, for example, is enough to create a very nice video or a banner or a campaign to make employees believe in the company's values or to have a sense of belonging. And it's not so simple like that. Something I like to tell to the leaders is no one in a company quits because an email has a spelling error, or no one believes in the company values just to see them posted on a wall. We need the leaders to assume the role they have in communications. And leaders have to understand that developing their communication skill is not an obligation, but an opportunity. And each leader has the opportunity to create a better work environment, a better employer brand, a better sense of belonging, in short, a better organization. And in addition to sensitizing and training them, I think that it's very important to the internal communication areas to measure them. I think that we have to know what are their strengths and weaknesses in communication. For example, who are the best in terms of communication, who is the best providing feedback or receiving feedback, who is the best to make a good oral presentation, who is the best with the technologies, tools. I think that the internal communication area has to be a radar, and have to be, they had to know what happens with the communication every day, with the leaders' communication every day. And that's why it's so important to make some research and investigations and to know what happens with the leaders' communication.
I love that. I love how you emphasize the importance of measuring the effectiveness of communication. It's so important, and it's the only way to get better over time. And it's not just, measuring kind of the internal communication team, measuring how leaders are communicating. It's also leaders individually, right? Supervisors at any level.
Any level.
They need to not only research how they're communicating, but also research what their employees like, how they like to be heard or listened to, right?
Sure. Not just only measure how many clicks an article received in the internal social media. No, not only this. To measure the things. Which are the most important content that the people want to receive, and well, how to participate, to collaborate.
Exactly, and how they
more
just like
human
to communicate.
skills. Yeah, sure, more human skills, and not only clicks and technological things. Not only big data, smart data.
Right. It's just communication within a team even. I mean, it's as simple as managers asking their employees about their preferences regarding which communication formats they prefer, right? And respond, and then kind of sharing their own sentiments, right? I like to have one-on-one conversations with you, or I'd like to have these conversations via video, or anytime I have a question, or maybe I'd rather have my conversation with my supervisor on a weekly basis, right? So ask your employees how they like to communicate with you. And at the same time,
and we have, Patrick, we have a challenge there, and we have told about it a lot of times. The leader needs time to do that.
Sure.
The leader needs free time to have an interview with you, have a meeting with you, and to hear with you. If the leader has a lot of work, they don't have the time, the necessary time they need to know what Patrick needs for their communication. And that's very important for the organization to make a good plan for the leaders. So the leader have time to talk with the people and to have this information, and then to plan good communication with each one.
Perfect, perfect. Alejandro, let's move on to our second topic, which refers to the importance of having the ability to listen to your employees. It's very related, in a way to what we have already been chatting about. Now, I've always liked to look at communicators as the chief listening officers within an organization. As communicators, we always like to focus on what we should say and how we should say it, but being able to listen is just as important. There's this quote from Mark Twain that I love that says, if we were meant to talk more than listen, we would have two mouths and one ear. Alejandro,
and this is a challenge for us, for Latin people, that we love to talk.
Yes, yes.
It's a special challenge for us.
And communicators. So Alejandro, what steps do you usually recommend organizations to take to make it easy for employees to actively participate and share their thoughts and opinions?
Great. I believe that the best way to get employees to want to participate and share their ideas and opinions is by developing a culture that is open to dialogue. In my experience, people share their ideas when they feel safe to do so. When they know that they can be honest and that will not cause any problem. When they feel that the other person really cares what they have to say, and when they observe that the things they propose are taken into account or applied. I think that sometimes companies focus too much on technology solutions. Sometimes the companies think that it's the technology that will provoke people to participate or express their ideas. For example, I may have your email account, your Instagram, your WhatsApp, your telephone number, but if I don't want to share to participate there with you, I'm not going to do that. So it's not so simple to have a new technology. A few days ago, a company asked me what technology they could implement to get people to participate more, or to get more open, or to collaborate more. I replied that the best technology is a good leadership. So they have to, again, they have to invest in the leaders and invest in what skills? Well, for example, invest that the leaders learn how to listen. And to listen, maybe one could think that it's a simple action, but it's not so simple to have a real and an open and a good listen to the other person. For example, how to ask good questions that open the dialogue, not to close, good questions. How to open space for collaboration, not technological space only, space in all the sense. How to, for example, accept difference. Because if I'm talking to you, maybe we have a different opinion. So if I want you to participate, I have to be open to accept difference. And or for example, how to value the diversity of opinions. I think that the key is to invest in culture, not just in technology. Because when the people feel safe to express their opinion, I think that is the best thing we can have to get the employees more open, more collaboratives. And I think, again, this is a leadership challenge, not just a technology or a media challenge.
Yeah, really, really great tips. As you were talking about how to get employees to share their thoughts. I remembered a story I once read about a leader that had a very assertive personality. He was passionate, he was innovative, but his subordinates described him as a bull in a china shop when it came to listening. So to bring him back, kind of to break this bad habit, a consultant instructed him to use a listening stick. So he started to practice this at home with his wife. And every time he wanted to talk during dinner, he had to kind of wait for his wife to pass him the listening stick. And apparently, having this physical cue helped him improve his listening skills. And with this story, I'm not trying to say like every leader should be walking around with a listening stick. But as you were saying, they should make a conscious effort to increase the amount of time they spend listening.
Sure.
Another point you were making about, just learning and strategizing and how to become a good leader made me think a little bit about, our job as internal communicators and interviewing employees and conducting focus groups. We really have to become good listeners. And it's not just important to listen to, what they're saying verbally. It's also important to hear what they're saying non-verbally, right? Many times people might say one thing, but their face and their body are saying the opposite. So as communicators, we need to pay attention to this so that we avoid making the wrong conclusions. And finally, one tip I got a long time ago when it comes to kind of interviewing employees and paying attention to them that I love that has helped me personally is the fact to always validate and verify what you heard. Right? So when you're asking questions, it's always good to go back and say, like, here's what I thought you said. Is that correct? I think, that's really important to just make sure you're understanding what your employees are saying. Really, really, really interesting.
The keys are so simple, no? Is to validate what you're saying, to be open, to can hear different opinions. And I think that Steve Jobs makes, I think a lot of leaders admire Steve Jobs, and I have read the book, but I think that the leadership style of Steve Jobs is the opposite of what we're talking here. Because a lot of people say, well, I want to be the Apple of my
my organization.
My organization, and they admire Steve Jobs, and they think that Apple was Apple because of the leadership style of Steve Jobs, and I think that it's not. And for example, in Argentina, a lot of people say, well, but Steve Jobs didn't hear the employees, and they have this style of leadership, and he built a big company. And I say, well, I'm not so sure. I think you have to have another example of a good leadership. So I always suggest to the CEOs to focus on other style of leadership, not in Steve Jobs.
Right.
He's a god. For I think 90% of people, he's a god, but the style of communication he has, I think, is not good for an organization.
Really, really interesting. So we're just talking about listening, right? Let's move on to our third topic, which is being intentional with your communication and knowing when to embrace silence. During these past 2 years, the volume of messages being sent out to employees has increased in many organizations. Right, new regulations, new procedures. Anything regarding, our new rules regarding hybrid working, or anything about post-lockdown guidelines, all of this, right, or changes to the corporate strategy. All of this information bombardment has contributed to the exhaustion employees feel. As internal communicators, it's important to know when not to communicate. Alejandro, how do you help clients to communicate too frequently with their employees? How do you help them, just determine what's relevant and what isn't?
Well, I think this is a mate. For all the American people, this is a mate. We drink it in Argentina.
In Chile too, I love mate, Alejandro.
Yeah, in Chile also.
But not so much.
No, it's more in Argentina and in Uruguay.
Paraguay. And Paraguay as well.
And Paraguay also. Yeah, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, yeah. And in the south of Brazil also. I think one of the great myths in communication is to think that sending more message is communicating more, or talking a lot is communicating more, or sending many emails is communicating more, or doing many campaigns is to communicating more. But it's not true. Communication is not a matter of quantity, but a quality. Today, we live in a time where we are saturated with message, which reach us through different screens and all the time. So what I propose to companies is to avoid this problem of infoxication, the mix of intoxication and information, the infoxication, is that they create communication policies. And that implies meeting with the leaders and talking about 4 topics. First, the first question is, what do employees really need to know about the company, about the future, about their own team, about the product or the service? What do the employees really need to know? And we can list it in order of importance. Second, the second key for build a communication policy is by what medias or channels we are going to send that information. When, at what time we need to send all those messages, and how often. I think that the communication policy helps a lot to organize the information, to be more careful, and to avoid sending message for no reason. I think that sometimes the leader thinks that everything that happens in a company is important and the people needs to know that. And you know that it's not true, because in internal communication, you have all the message that you receive for the company. But if you are in your home, or if you are in the work also, you have your mobile and you receive messages here. So we are infoxicating. We receive message all the time. So the communication policies helps to organize the information and to really think what is important, why the people need this information. Is this information for all the people or just for one area or one sector of the company? When they have to need to receive this information? Now, later, how often? Because sometimes people receive the same message for different medias at the same times, and this produces that the people avoid the internal medias. They avoid to open an email. They avoid to get into a meeting. They avoid to read a newsletter or social media or internal social media. And that's why it's so important to make communication policies and to be very honest about the message that the people really needs to receive.
Yeah, love your point about the communication policies. A lot of times organizations just simply don't have those, and there's no kind of guide into regarding, when should we communicate, at what time, how often, to who, right? All of that is extremely important. So kind of jumping to our 4th area of focus, this is all about having the capacity to maintain employee connectedness, right? In an ongoing decentralized environment. Many employees enjoy working from home. Others perceive that working from home is isolating and demoralizing. Without the right structures and activities in place, remote employees feel, not only physically distant, but emotionally distant from their team. Alejandro, how should organizations help remote workers connect to the organization and to each other?
Well, I'm going to tell you the strategy that work best for us. The first is obviously, but I think we have to help people and train them in the use of the technology. This is especially true for maybe for older workers or from those with limited technical skills, or for employees who prefer the face-to-face communication. I think we have to train them in the use of technology, and the companies have to be patient with these workers, because there's a learning curve for all this, because it's a change of paradigm in the communication. People from their home, they have to connect, they have to talk. Maybe for a lot of months they don't return to the office. So we have to train. The company needs to be patient and to provide the technology. And second, I think that it's important to maintain more frequent communication, because and you say that the home office doesn't mean that we are isolated. Home office, you need to, sometimes people by not interacting face to face can feel isolated, and of course this affects their productivity. But I think that this is why it's essential to encourage interaction between remote teams to avoid these problems, to make a plan with individual meetings, with weekly team video conference, to make a plan to avoid this feeling of isolated. You have to make a plan with all this communication and with all these meetings and this conference. And the third recommendation, and I love it, is very simple, but it's what we're doing here today, is to use video a lot, not just to communicate by chat, not just by WhatsApp or by other app, but to use video, to get the opportunity to people to see each other, to turn on the camera. I know that a lot of people maybe are more ashamed to turn on the camera and to talk with because it's a strange thing now to talk with just your screen. But we have to give the opportunity to people to learn how to feel more comfortable with this space, and I think that the leader have to ask people to turn always the camera on, because that helps a lot to make the teams feel much more connect and much more close each other. Just to turn on the camera. It's very strange to talk to a team where all the screens are in black and just with the name. And it's very difficult to make a meeting in this condition. So it's very important to turn on the camera. And the fourth recommendation is to make time to face-to-face meeting. Maybe you can't make every week a face-to-face meeting. I don't know, but if you can't do it, I think that we have to make a plan with maybe once a week or twice a week, have a face-to-face meeting, because this can boost the morale and help the remote workers to connect with the company, with the team culture. The distance matters. The distance matters. So we have to feel more close with the video, but also with the face-to-face meetings. So train the people with the technology and to be patient with the learning curve, to maintain more frequent communications, to make a plan, to use more video, and try to make more face-to-face meetings.
Love it. Love all of your tips. Just to kind of add on to that a little bit, it's also kind of really important to leave space for just kind of informal interactions, right? An extra level of investment, particularly when we're not in the same place physically, needs to be placed in relationship building. So it's hard when we all have a busy schedule, but leaving that time to somehow schedule in kind of informal conversations and just thinking about how to build strong relationships needs to be placed always, but also, particularly when, we're all in different places.
And what you're talking about, informal communication, is especially an issue for those communication leaders here that works with teams from Latin America, because in Latin America, the informal communication is a very important part of the work. In Latin America, you can't start a meeting just talking about work. You have to talk about the life, the family, the sports, and then 5 minutes. You have at last 5 minutes to talk about the informal communication, and then you can start talking about the work. If you start talking about the work, you say, hey, what happened here? Hey,
from what I remember,
are you angry with me? What?
I remember them being not 5 minutes. It was more like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But yeah, really important point, Alejandro. So let's spend some time talking about mental health and well-being. Just from longer work hours to increased demands at home. The COVID-19 pandemic just introduced new stressors to nearly every domain of life. So as we currently enter the third year of the pandemic, these stressors have become persistent and indefinite. And as a result, they have heightened everyone's risk of burnout. Broadly speaking, burnout is just this syndrome resulting from workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed, right? And it's characterized by 3 dimensions. The first dimension of burnout is just kind of these feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, right? I'm just tired. The second dimension is, feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, right? You start to become negative about your job, about the people around you. And the third sign of burnout is just kind of people having perceptions of reduced professional efficacy. You're starting to feel like maybe you're not good at your job, or maybe you need to kind of transition into another profession even. A wide range of studies have consistently highlighted the high levels of stress that employees are feeling. A recent 2021 survey conducted by the American Psychological Association found, and this survey was kind of surveyed over 1,500 US adult workers. What the survey found was that 79% of employees had experienced work-related stress in the month before the survey, right? So 4 out of 5 people in 2021 said that work is stressing them out. And this stress that people are feeling has a negative impact in people's lives, right? So nearly 3 in 5 employees reported that work-related stress was impacting them in negative ways. 25% in that survey said that this work-related stress translated into lack of interest or motivation and energy. 20% said that the stress they felt was due to this kind of lack of effort at work, right? They were feeling stressed, so they weren't working as hard at work. 25% reported that they were feeling cognitive weariness. 30% reported emotional exhaustion. And as it's included here in the slide, nearly or 44% reported physical fatigue, right? And this was a 38% increase since 2019. Alejandro, a new awareness of mental health and workplace health issues is an important trend in organizations. How can organizations use employee communication to address this important issue?
Well, I'm going to talk again about the leaders, following the co-creation communication model. I think that the leader have to know that communication influence health, that a bad message cause pain or may cause sadness or may cause worries, and that sometimes a simple word is enough to change your mood. So the leader had to know that communication is really powerful, and the leader had to be careful with their words because the words leave a mark. And we can see in this investigation now, in this research that you are showing here, that how the employees report impacts of work-related stress, about maybe because they don't feel recognized by their own leaders, they can express what they are feeling or what they are thinking. And we can't, when you can't express where you think, when you can't express what you think, when your leader, for example, doesn't hear you, that impact in your wellness, and of course that impact in the sense of belonging with your company. This is a very famous quote that say that nobody quits a company for the company itself, but for the leader. And that's the importance that the good communication have for the employees, and the leader are the most important internal communication. They are more important than the internal communication area, I think. Mm-hmm. And
great point.
Yeah. And that's why they have to always remember that the words leave a mark, and I think they have to print it and put it in the office. Words leave a mark.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you continue to emphasize the importance of leaders, right? And because they play, a huge role in all of this.
Huge role. Sure.
Yeah, and in terms of just communicators, right, and maybe the internal communication function, one of the things that communicators should do is just kind of, make employees feel comfortable about having these conversations, right? And having a clear understanding of what leads to burnout. Things like workload, lack of control, lack of rewards, recognition, poor relationships, lack of fairness, or even when there's like a values mismatch. All of these things have an impact on burnout. So it's really the communicator's role to understand all of these things. So understand, okay, what leads to burnout, right? Because we understand that the workload is a very big reason for burnout, but there's all of these other reasons that contribute to burnout,
sure.
Right? And as communicators, I feel like particularly the relationship component, what can we do as communicators to improve relationships within an organization that can play a big role in also contributing to the mental health of all employees?
Yeah, but and one more thing, I think that the leaders themselves have to be able to recognize, for example, that they have stress or burnout. They are not superheroes. So I think that when one leader recognizes that he or she is stressed or burnout, it opens a door to the team. For the team can express that, hey, I feel the same. Because sometimes an employee doesn't want to recognize that has burnout or is stressed, because they may feel that is a sign of weakness, for example. But when your leader, they say, hey, I'm stressed, I feel burnout, I'm not feeling good. They are showing to the team that it's okay to be bad sometimes. It's okay to feel bad. You don't need to be a superhero in a company. And I think that's why it's so important to express not only what you are thinking, but what you are feeling. Open the door to express the feeling. I think that, for example, in this time of pandemic, I think that it's a good tool for the leaders to express what they are feeling, and if they are feeling bad, to talk about it We need to talk about what we are feeling, especially when we feel bad, especially when we are feeling bad.
Right.
But sometimes the leaders think they have to be superheroes, or the company asks them to be superheroes, and it's not good. It's not good, and it's not true. We are all humans, and we all have up and downs, and I think that the leaders need to feel safe to express that they are not feeling good.
Yeah, I love that. It's just the idea of expressing humanity, right? We're all humans. We all
humanity.
have lives. Yeah.
So simple to express humanity.
Yeah. Like me right now, I have an 8-month-old baby crying in the other room. And she's the best baby in the world. Like she doesn't cry, but today she's crying throughout this hour. I think it's because she wasn't able to listen to you to chat today, Alejandro. She really wanted to be here, but so she's upset I didn't let her come into this room.
and also for me, because I'm outside my comfort zone, because I'm talking in English. I'm not bilingual, so this is a challenge for me, and I love it. But well, yesterday I slept not so good. I was thinking, well, I hope everyone understand me. So I think that I think that the people feel more close when you express what you are feeling. Yeah. And when a team sees to the leader like a human, say, hey, he or she feels bad or worries about something. Well, I think that makes the team more close, and I think it's good.
Exactly. Let's move on to employee recognition. One of the best ways to motivate employees is by recognizing them for their work, right? The more you recognize your employees, the more motivated they are to do more for the organization. So Alejandro, in your experience, what are the best ways to recognize employees in a meaningful way that goes beyond pay and benefits?
Well, I think that a good question to start is to think, why do you work? Why do you work in a company? And many will say, well, we work for money, but however, no matter how many zeros your payroll has, there are elements that add or subtract to your job satisfaction, and that are part of what we call the emotional salary. The emotional salary are all the non-economic rewards you get for doing your job, and they are very important because the economic salary, I think, is the base. Okay, we all need money to live, so the economic salary is the base, but you need to add more things to that equation. No, all that element that I think that helps you to grow personally and professionally. I think that this is the most important things when you think in recognition. I think that you have to think in
Alejandro, I lost your voice. I don't know if it's me or. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like we've lost Alejandro. Alejandro still doesn't. Still talking. I'm gonna text him quickly to see if he realizes I'm sending him a message. Here you. Alejandro. It seems like he's saying a lot of interesting things. So, yeah, this is too bad. He'll have to repeat everything. I hope he. And he's not seeing the messages, the chat messages either. So we have lost Alejandro, which is a shame because I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to ask him questions. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll change the slide. Let's see if he notices that. And he can't even hear us. There he noticed. Alejandro, we can't hear you. Okay, looks like he's connecting to the audio now. Alejandro, can you hear us? All right, so this is one of the great things about technology. They're great to communicate, but we can have these issues sometimes. Let's wait, for just a minute or two to see if we can hear him again. Alejandro? So let's kind of, while Alejandro kind of transitions and kind of, sees if he can come back with audio, let's move on to our seventh topic. Our seventh topic today is about how companies, that live diversity, equity, and inclusion can retain talent. One of the most important things that we've been kind of living today in the US, but also around the world, has to do with the importance of just living diversity and inclusion within your organizations, right? The social and political turmoil that the US has experienced during the past couple of years have spotlighted just the overall bias and discrimination that occurs not only outside of the workplace, but inside as well. Many organizations, lack diversity and inclusion and diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. They invest too little time creating a culture of diversity. They communicate inconsistently or too little throughout the organization about the importance of diversity. And they have little to no understanding of the measurable benefit of diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Now, in addition to the moral and ethical importance of effectively managing diversity within the workplace, diversity and equity and inclusion are just good for business. A recent survey that I wanted to share with all of you today, found that 78% of workers want their employer to prioritize diversity, but nearly a quarter think that their employers aren't doing enough to create a diverse, inclusive workplace. This is a big mistake, considering that organizations with a diverse and inclusive workplace report 5.4 times higher employee retention and are significantly more likely to have financial returns above their industry medians. Additionally, these organizations are 70% more likely to capture new markets and are 75% more likely to bring in a new idea to market. Alejandro, I think I have you back with the audio. Is that correct?
Yes. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. I was trying to kind of find ways to communicate with you before, but I wasn't able to have you see me. But I'm so happy that we're back, and that we can all listen to you again. You were talking previously about employee recognition. We heard part of that. We didn't listen to all of it. I'm sure it was all genius, as everything you say is, but just kind of for the sake of time, we've moved forward.
Yeah, sure.
Equity and inclusion. So I do want to ask you a question about diversity, which is, just the demographic, social, and cultural realities in Latin America are considerably different than they are here in the U.S., right? Is diversity, equity, and inclusion a priority for organizations in Latin America? And if not, do you see this becoming a priority, or at least more important than it currently is in the near future?
Yeah, I think in the last year, that topic is a priority, and a lot of companies are talking about the importance of the diversity and the inclusion, and I think that sometimes we can witness a contradiction at this point, because, for example, companies want a consolidated culture, but they also want a diversity culture. So I think that we have a challenge in this. And in the same company, we have, for example, a culture, but in each company, we have different cultures in different areas or in different places where the company is located. So I think that the diversity is a fact in a company. A company has diversity. I think that the challenge is, how can we manage this diversity, and how can we make this diversity works for the company, and how can we can take this diversity to or apply this diversity for example, develop new products or new service, or to make a better work environment. Because every company is diverse, every family has diversity, no? And I think that the challenge is how we can use this diversity for the company and for make a better place, for example, to work. But in the last year here in Latin America, this is a topic, this is a highlight for the companies.
Perfect. Thank you, Alejandro. And let's kind of now jump into our last topic, so that we have time for the Q&A session right after this.
Sure.
And this final topic of the day is, just understanding that the very core of employee experience is effective internal communication. Overall, employee experience refers to, just what people encounter and observe over the course of their tenure at an organization. Traditionally, every company invests in the customer experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, as organizations increasingly recognize people as their greatest assets, they're investing in the employee experience as well.
Sure.
Polls have found that nearly 80% of executives rate employee experience as very important or important. And everyone recognizes that an employee's experience contributes to, things like engagement, recruiting, retention, the bottom line of an organization, all of that. However, I came across research from Deloitte that shows that only 9% of business leaders believe that they are ready to address the issue. What we find today is that, research is revealing that poor communication has the largest negative impact on experience. Why is this the case, Alejandro? And, just why is communication so important for employee experience?
Well, with my co-create communication model, I propose that everything that happens in a company is a message. Everything. Because communication is not built only with words or with campaigns or with media. Everything in a company is a message. Your salary, your possibilities for development, the physical space where you work, the style of leadership. And in the same way that a brand is not just a logo or a advertising, the internal communication is much more than campaigns. From this perspective, the employee experience is built in a co-created way between all the areas of the company, just like communication. And there is a connection between the employee experience and the customer experience. A couple of weeks ago, I posted in my Instagram, it's Ale Formanchuk. I post a carousel there where I talk about experience and how the employee experience affects the customer experience. Because if the people in our organization, for example, doesn't know about the new product or about a new service, how they can talk to a customer. If the people of the organization doesn't feel well with their own organization, how these people are going to bring a good service or a good attention to the customers. So I always try to explain to the leader that invest in employee experience is invest in customer experience also, because they are connected. They are connected. And the internal communication is a part of the employee experience, but not only the internal communication, because the employee experience is not just make a new campaign, it's not just talk about the culture or talk about the values of the organization. I think that the employee experience is what you feel in the company. And what you feel is not just what the internal communication area says. What you feel is what, for example, what your leader do every day. What practice they develop every day is more than campaign. So the internal communication, I think that plays a role very important for the employee experience, but not only the internal communication area. And I think that the challenge for the internal communication is to explain that the employee experience is co-created with all the organization. And we are not to improve the employee experience just for making a new video or just to make a new campaign. Sometimes we need to make more deep change, not just a new media. Maybe you have to change the management. Maybe you have to change the style of the leadership. Maybe you have to change more things. Maybe you have to change what you do, not just what you say.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Great tips. Thank you, Alejandro. Let's jump into the Q&A session. So far, I've found one question for you, Alejandro. So for those of you that are interested in asking questions, just feel free to jot them down, and I'll ask Alejandro, you know, what you want him to chat to you about. But the first question refers to the part of the conversation where you were chatting about how meetings in Latin America can't start without, you know, these informal conversations about family, sports, all of that. Do you think that small talk should be encouraged at the beginning of meetings in the United States as well? He's also adding, I don't see that often in meetings that he participates in, but he imagines it could help kind of break the ice. What do you think about kind of that, just specifically in the United States?
Well, I think that it's not a formula that fixes all the problems or is appropriate for all the cultures, for all the countries. But I think that the informal communication, how you say that sometimes it's good for break the ice and to begin a meeting with more connected, more human. But the informal communication, you for example, informal communication, if you are going to talk about politics or about religion or some topics, I think that are don't contribute for the meeting. So it's not just informal communication. Informal communication, you have to make a plan of what topics you are going to what topic you are going to talk in this informal communication. You have to plan with topics you are going to talk back. I think it's a good thing to begin a meeting talking about personal things. I think that it contributes to feel more connected, and that we are not only workers. We don't have only a work relationship. We also have a human relationship, because I'm interested about you. But if I think that the informal communication is good when you are really interested in the other person. When you just begin talking about personal things just to make, do a checklist, I think that the other person feels that. Say, well, he's trying to show that he's interested in my life, but now it's just the 5 minutes that some coach suggests him to make in the beginning of a meeting. I think that the best informal communication is when you are really we are really interested in the other person, in the life and in the feelings and what happened with the other person.
Right, like you say, like people.
I don't know what you think about this, Patrick, because we are very close about the culture. Chile and Argentina are very close. We have common habits, no? And
yes, I mean,
what do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, the U.S. has a very different culture than Latin America when it comes to meetings, right? Efficiency is always number one. Time is very important. Like I live that with just teaching my students, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's 100% punctual in the U.S., which is great, but it also kind of pushes those of us that come from Latin America, like, oh, we need to step it up here, right? Because in Chile, for example, people are late to everything all of the time.
Yeah.
So it's just part of life, right?
Part of life, yeah.
So it's really important to be able to adapt to the culture that
Sure.
you're in.
But for example, Patrick, when you start a class in the university, you start with the class, not talking about the life.
So it depends. It depends,
okay,
right? I think students always appreciate a personal conversation, and for me, I feel that that can go a long way, right? But I think there's also kind of there's more of a nuance in terms of what's the right timing for that. And it's also, there's more of also an importance as to what time the meeting ends, right? If a meeting is supposed to end at a certain time, a class is supposed to end at a certain time, it ends at that time. My experience in when I was studying in Chile wasn't like that. If the teacher wanted to go on, like okay, like we'll stay there as long as the teacher goes. So like there's obviously kind of differences in culture, and it's really important to be able to adapt, right? And as communicators, when we're developing campaigns in different countries, it's just important to know where you are and what works in specific places. So I completely agree with with what you were saying.
And I think that is one of the most important skills for leaders and for communication, to the ability to adapt their own style of communication depending of where they are, which culture, which company, which country. I think that most important ability is to adapt your style to the place where you are, or the company where you are.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, everyone likes to feel like others care about them, regardless of the culture, right? So I mean, putting in the personal touch, I think that will work everywhere. Everyone wants to feel that the people they work for care for them and are interested in their lives. So it's important to show that. But like you say, it only works if you're authentic. If you're just doing
Sure.
it to go through the checklist, you know, nobody will want to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, the other person knows that and can feel that. It's just to check.
Exactly. Alejandro, there's another question. And the question is, how do you engage with a colleague through listening rather than speaking?
I think that you have to be authentic, to that you really want to hear the other person. I think that how can you hear more another person? There's a lot of tips in Google. You put in Google how to hear another person, and you have 1,000 tips. But I think that the best way to really hear another person is when you really want to know what the other think or how the other people feels, and when you are really interested in what the other person is thinking or feeling. If you don't interest in the other persons, I think you never are going to hear nobody. If you think that you know all about the project, or you know everything about a topic, you never are going to hear another person. So I think that when you are open, when you have this elite athlete mentality that you need to improve every day, I think that that's the better way to really hear a colleague, or really hear another worker or your leader. When you are open and you feel that every day you can learn something new. When you have this mentality, I think that is the best way to be open to hear another person, and not just to hear, but to think about what the other person is talking, and to introduce these thinkings or feelings in your life, and or to do something with that, not just to hear the words, but to do something with these words that you are hearing. And not only hearing, because sometimes the leaders lead a team with, for example, 50 employees, and maybe they don't have the time to have meetings with each person, because each meeting maybe lasts 10 minutes and they don't have time to talk 10 minutes with each person. So we suggest that the leaders understand that hear another person is not only to hear the words, but to watch, to observe, to pay attention of what the other person is doing. Because with the acts, with other person, that I think that they are saying things to the organization or to the team. Not just what they say, what they express with the words, but what they do with the act. So the leader have to pay attention to the actions, because sometimes people don't express what they think, but always the people do something, and this thing that the people do also is a message, and we have to hear that. You have to see that message.
Perfect. Alejandro, we have run out of time. It is
okay.
9:14.
Wow.
Thank you.
The time rush.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, Patrick.
It was a pleasure to have you, Alejandro. I hope this was a great experience for everyone, just having this opportunity to listen to Alejandro. And thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Sure, and I'm going to leave here in the chat my Instagram. If you want to follow, I'm sharing ideas. You can practice Spanish, because I share this in Spanish, so you can practice. Ale Formanchuk, and I also leave here the website of my agency, and you can download their ebooks about communication, and some of the ebooks are in English, so you can download it and
Wonderful.
I'm ready.
Wonderful.
Patrick,
all right.
thank you, and thank you for all, and hope to see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.